In this tutorial, I will be explaining how to create a cinemagraph in Adobe Photoshop. A cinemagraph is a technique where it is a GIF image, so it's a looping image where a portion of the still image actually has video. And so you can see in this one, everything else is a still image. The can in the hand and the soda in the glass isn't moving, but this tiny part here is actually a video that is looping as a GIF. Here is another example. This technique began in fashion photography. You see a lot of the early stuff. If you go to cinemagraph.com, the people who originally created it used it for fashion photography, and it works great for any kind of video that has any kind of looping aspect to it, or something that you can even reverse to have it end where it begins. So this hair, where there's kind of a random component to it, they actually probably reverse it about halfway to get it back to the first point so that you can't see where it loops and starts over again. Another example is here. So what you do for this, basically fundamentally what this is a still image. So all of this stuff on the right side, everything down here that I'm tracing with my mouse, is all a still image. Then you cut out a portion of the still image, and behind that still image is the video that is looping. And we can create this very easily in Photoshop. I've included a video that you can use for this. The clip I'm going to use is just a very simple AVI file. MP4 files will work too, just taken with a standard point-and-shoot camera. The important thing is if you shoot your own video for this, that you need to use a tripod, because you need video that is very still so that you can remove the portion of the still image that you want and keep the video behind it, which will make more sense as we go. So I'm going to come here to File, Open in Photoshop, and choose my video file. This is an AVI file. And when I open it, Photoshop has a lot of video editing components now to it. And you can see that it's taken this layer of video and placed it on its own video group down here. And if I press spacebar on this, see what I had is some students that are out in the hallway, and they're going to be walking. And we're going to make all of the students walking a still image. And then we're going to take this part of the video here and have the water in the fountain repeat. Now, I could have some issues here where he crosses over the fountain. I can't really use that because I have to have a part of the cinemagraph that I can keep reusing, and that would make it hard. So I'm going to have to pick a part of this from before he walks past, or I could even probably pick a part after he walks past, but I'm going to choose this part. The first thing I need to do is get a small repeatable looping video clip. And so I have this water. It doesn't really start till about here at its maximum height, and I'm going to go a little bit past that. So where it's at 4 seconds 19 frames now, I'm going to go to, let's say, let's just do a full second. That'll be easy. We'll say about 5 seconds 19 frames. And I want to remove all of this earlier stuff because I don't want it. And I can do that by grabbing this edge of the beginning of the clip here and dragging it into that timeline indicator. And when I let go, it not only will delete this portion of it, but it'll also do a ripple delete. And by that I mean it moves everything else. There was a 4 second gap there, and it just slides everything to the left to fill that gap. So now my very first frame is that one that I chose. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide the right end to be about there. I don't need too much of this video because I'm going to loop it, and I can drag this down till about, and that's about 2 seconds and 11 frames there. So now I have some audio that, or some video that I can repeat. Now I can test this. If I click on this setting here, I can make sure that loop playback is selected, and now when I hit play, I can see how that audio, if that looks like it's looping. And it may look great here. It's kind of hard to tell. My computer isn't really dealing with it all that well. It's running it at less than real time. But sometimes I have to mask the loop so that you can't see when it starts over again. And the way we do that is we need our very last frame to be the same as our very first frame, and that will mask that that looping that we're doing. Now here's the way that I can do that. I have this clip here. I want to make a duplicate of this. I don't want to click on the clip itself. I want to click on the layer here and then press Control J. And what that will do is create another copy of that layer. I'm going to take this one and drag it to the end. So now, if I zoom in a little bit, this frame right here is the same as this one. Now the reason why I went about a second in before I cut it that first time was because now I can take this and I can drag this back a little bit and I'll still have good working stuff. So now there's an overlap, but by the time I get to here, we're back to that frame 1 that's here. And if I remove this, if I take that back to there, and I need to make sure that that actually snaps, now we basically have this video is going to end right where this one should begin again. Now, for this to work, I need to blend these two together. And what I'll be doing for that is I'm going to, right where this animation, or where this video starts, this one right here, I'm going to start fading out this top one. And it's going to fade and fade and fade, and by the time that this one is invisible, all we'll see is this bottom video layer, which will then be completely visible and share the same first frame as the beginning, which is a way that we can hide that edit. So to make that a little more clear, let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to twirly this down, and I will want to create an animation on the opacity layer. So we're going to turn this top layer here from visible to invisible. And I can begin animation by clicking this stopwatch here, which allows me to enable keyframe animation, and it'll set a keyframe. That keyframe is now at 100% opacity, as we can see over here. Now what I can do is I basically want it to go from completely visible to completely invisible by that last frame. And so I can slide my timeline indicator to where I want the change to happen, and I can either just click this create new keyframe, or I can just change the opacity and it'll happen automatically. So I'm going to come over here and change the opacity now to 0. And now what we're really seeing, if I turn this other layer off, what's wrong one? And it's going to look a little weird with the people walking, but what we're seeing is a gradual fade back into that very first frame again. And that's one way that we can mask the fact that it's looping. It might not even be necessary for this one because the water is already fairly random and it might line up pretty well, but that's one way that you can do that. Now we have a looping animation. It's only about 2 seconds and 10 frames, but it's going to loop. The last step of this is now we need to create our still image. So I'm going to pick a part of this that I want to pull that still image from. So right here where he's starting to walk but he hasn't crossed over the other one yet, the other student that's standing there, that is the point where I want there to be a still image. So I move my timeline indicator to where I want that to be, and now once again I'm going to click on the layer itself. If I click on the clip, it'll put it in the wrong spot, so click on the layer itself right here. And now I'm going to press Control-Alt-Shift-E. And what that will do is take the exact point where my timeline indicator is and create a still image at that exact spot. And I can put this still image, I'm going to drag it here and drag it shorter. Now I have a still image completely covering this. And I can't see anything moving because this still image is on top. I'm looking at the layers from above. I can't see through this still image until I remove a portion of it. And what I want to do is remove a portion of this still image that is just exactly the spot where the water fountain is the water's coming out, because then I will be able to see the video behind it where the water fountain is. So I could do this a lot of different ways. I could just take an eraser and start erasing this still image right here. I prefer a more non-destructive edit, which means I can create a mask. So on this still layer, which is right here, I can click on this create layer mask, and that makes a mask. And the way that a mask works is anywhere where you draw black with the mask, it'll become invisible. Anywhere where you draw white with the mask, it'll be visible, and grays too, but I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm going to get out a brush. Just going to use my regular brush. I'm going to change it to black by pressing X, which switches our foreground and background colors. And I'm going to start drawing black, or painting with black right here where I want to remove the image. And I only want to remove the image in the parts, the very small area here that has a fountain. It has the water coming out. And it's a little hard to see if I hold down Alt and I click on this. That's what the mask is actually doing. I'm cutting or removing the image right at that spot so that I can see the mask behind it. And what I get when I'm done is this is all still image. This is a hole in the still image where I can now see the video. And if I play this...
You good? Okay, you good? Okay, you good?
Oops, you'll notice here,
okay, you
I actually
good?
went a little too far. You can see where he gets cut out there, and that's because I made my mask too big. So that's why I like working with masks. If I decide I masked too much of it, I can come back to the mask. I click on this so that the mask itself is selected, and I can paint with white, and white will bring it back. With an eraser, if I erase it, there's not really a way I can bring it back short of undoing. But with this one, if I just paint white here, I want this to be photo, but I removed it so it was video, so you could see a little ghost of him moving through there. And so now if I play this...
You good? Okay, you good? Okay, you good?
This is the only part of it I can see
okay, you good?
Video on. And actually, if I'm going to turn the visibility off on that layer, this is what the photo actually looks like right here. It's been masked so that it's got a hole in it. And that hole is filled with the video, but all of the other parts of the video where we can see the students walking is covered by that image, creating a cinemagraph. The last thing I can do now is turn this into an animated GIF. And as far as I know now, the only way to make an animated GIF out of video in Photoshop is to come here to File, Export, and Save for Web Legacy. So it's a legacy thing. It means they're not really working with it anymore. I don't know if there's a newer way to do this, but it's still pretty easy if I use this. The quick key for that, Alt, Shift, Control, S, or I just come here to File, Export, Save for Web. And when that opens, you will get this Save for Web option. And it should be defaulted to GIF. You'll notice that GIFs are only 256 colors, and it hides the fact that it's only that many colors by doing a process called dithering, which you can see here. It's where we mix pixels of solid colors together, where in a distance they look like they are multiple colors instead of just the two. And so they don't look as nice. GIFs are one of the few graphics formats that accepts animation, and it'll accept frames. And I also have to specify under here where it says animation looping options, I want to set it forever, otherwise your GIF will only loop once and then end. So that's the only real change I have to make here. I don't want to mess with any of these other settings. I'm going to change looping options to forever, click on Save, use all of the defaults, so I'll call this one Hallway Cinemagraph, and I'm going to leave the format and the settings the same, and when I save this, I will create a GIF. And these animated GIFs, they work the best if you open like a web browser like Chrome, and I can double click on this or drag it into here. If I drag it into here, you will see now I have a cinemagraph. And that's the process.